Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and Q is too, dropping some bombs on us with a boom. 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 Well, that's precisely what we've got. Some booms, some late in the day booms, which suggests to me that Q may be on the move. Well, I know the feeling. Let's start off with 2668. 19 minutes after the hour 3, there they are. Boom, 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 boom. And we've seen this pattern before. We've seen booms before like this. We do know that they generally tend to be surrounded by certain events. Oftentimes, they are things that maybe some of them we might be able to predict, other ones we can't. I'm not much for speculation on the booms, but given the current climate, I suppose it could be a number of things. We've got the issue going on down at the border, where we've still got ourselves a massive standoff. And then, of course, we've got the issue with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Where's Bader? Bader. And then, of course, we've got next week's Senate confirmation hearing of William Barr. And that should be very, very interesting. And I'm sure it's going to be very, very contentious. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have a boom there, too. What would our fourth boom be? Does it have to do with China and the talks that just were happening this week? Don't really know. Let's move on to 2669 for now. 27 minutes after the hour of 3, speaking of China, looks like we're in China, in an airport in China. Yep, exactly. Now, you can take my opinion or leave it, but this looks rather familiar to me. Actually, I've been here a few times. This looks like baggage claim from the Beijing airport. And judging by the fact that the person has their baggage in the middle of the picture, I would assume that to be the case. And of course, it says domestic arrivals above in the sign. Now, I could be wrong. I mean, shoot, airports are airports, you know, but obviously we have some Chinese. We got a lot going on in Beijing right now. So I don't think it's that wild of a guess. Now, check this picture out to your right. Here is a picture of baggage claim. And if you look at the column here on the left side of your picture, you'll notice that it is banded with the steel at the bottom there, just like the picture on the left that Q posted. So that's just my guess. It looks like somebody has arrived in China. All right, so what's up with China? Q says, awaiting VIP arrival. What senior U.S. official is arriving in China? Purpose? Q, well, there's been a lot going on in China, in particular in Beijing. Kim Jong-un was just there. As a matter of fact, it's his 4th time visiting this year. Well, I guess in a year's time. It's already a new year. But so that's been going on. We've had a few U.S. dignitaries go over there. Now, I'm wondering if Q is referencing Steven Mnuchin, who was supposed to have been having a meeting. We're over here on Yahoo. China and U.S. talk on trade ahead of January negotiations. China and the U.S. held vice ministerial level talks on Wednesday to discuss the ongoing trade dispute as they move closer to meeting in January. The two sides spoke by phone, according to China's Ministry of Commerce, and have held several rounds of talks in recent weeks, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin told Bloomberg on Tuesday in Washington. They plan to hold a formal face-to-face meeting in January to negotiate a broader truce in their trade wars, but are unlikely to meet in person before then, Mnuchin said. We're in the process of confirming the logistics of several meetings, and we're determined to make sure that we use time wisely to try to resolve this, Mnuchin said. Both sides are now focused on trying to document an agreement by a March 1st deadline for their current tariffs truce to run out. We expect there will be meetings in January, he said. Previously, the administration hadn't been specific on the timing of talks. The two sides are planning to meet in January, according to Chinese officials with knowledge of the discussions, who had asked not to be named as the talks were private. China's Ministry of Commerce didn't respond to a fax request for comment. Mnuchin said neither he nor President Donald Trump were aware of the arrest of a senior executive from Huawei Technology Company when they met with China's Xi Jinping for dinner on December 1st, the same day that the company's chief financial officer was arrested in Canada. The Treasury Secretary also sought to play down the president's declaration last week that he would be willing to intervene on Huawei's behalf if it was necessary to help reach a trade deal between the world's two largest economies. We've been very clear, and China understands that these are separate tracks, Mnuchin said. He and the president had not had any direct conversations about the Huawei case. Mnuchin said he also declined to comment on whether the Treasury Department was preparing a broader case against the Chinese telecommunications equipment provider, which has been accused by the U.S. of conspiring to violate U.S. sanctions against Iran. Hawks in the Trump administration have long raised questions about just how much the U.S. should trust any promises of economic reforms made by Xi, given the experience of past administrations in dealing with Beijing. But Mnuchin said the two sides had agreed that any eventual deal would be enforceable and verifiable and have specific dates on it. We are determined that if we have an agreement, it will be specific enough that timeframes and details and everything else will be laid out. Okay, so this is pretty interesting stuff. And this would make a lot of sense to me because Mnuchin and Pompeo were just in Asia. Well, I mean, they were still in Asia with the Iran, talking in Iran. So it would make sense for Mnuchin to stop over. It also makes sense not to announce this. Like they said, they really want to try and get this done by March. And of course, China's trying to reduce their trade deficit too. So it really behooves China to talk. But of course, I think that if they put a big deal on this, this would just give the unhinged left, if you will, lots of fodder to go ahead and fire against this and try and make things difficult. Meanwhile, everything at home seems to be all focused on the border. Now, like I said, we already had people in Beijing. This is from Annie Wu at the Epoch Times. Beijing expresses optimism, some willingness to concede after trade talks conclude. After U.S.-China trade talks ended in Beijing on January 9th, the Chinese regime expressed optimism for a breakthrough and indirectly willingness to make concessions. In a brief statement on January 10th, China's Ministry of Commerce said the two sides had reached an important consensus and will continue to have close contact. Okay, an important consensus. That's pretty important. With regard to trade issues and structural problems both sides were concerned about, both carried out extensive, deep, and meticulous exchanges, promoted mutual understanding, and laid the foundation for solving problems that both are interested in, the statement read. Washington has called on Beijing to make structural reforms that address state-sponsored intellectual property theft, discriminatory policies, that favor domestic firms over foreign ones, and other unfair trade practices. Few other details were made public about the amount of progress made during the talks, but Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lu Kang said that the one-day extension beyond the original schedule was an indication that both sides were serious in making negotiations. Ding Shufan, a research fellow at Taiwan's Institute of International Relations, had a different interpretation of the one-day extension. He believed it meant the two sides had divergent views that needed more discussion to reach a breakthrough. I believe China is buying time and waiting to see how things pan out, Ding said. Citing unidentified Chinese officials involved in the trade talks, Bloomberg reported January 9th that there were disagreements between the two delegations on structural issues, which they hope will be addressed when more senior negotiators meet for talks. But on January 10th, China's state-run media provided a hint that the regime could be ready to concede to U.S. demands. Now, the man you see here conducting these talks is Deputy U.S. Trade Representative Jeffrey Garish, the Deputy United States Trade Representative for Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and Industrial Competitiveness. He was nominated by President Donald Trump and confirmed by the Senate on March 5th, 2018. Okay, so could it be that while Trump is calling all the attention towards the border, Jeff Garish and Mr. Mnuchin are over there getting it done with China? And I suppose if we got a big deal coming from them, that would be a big boom. Post 2670, 36 minutes after the hour of 3. Q takes us back to post 2653 from January 6th, talking about Bader and all her crazy, kooky, wacky ideas. Now, we're not going to go through this here. If you want to hear more about this, just go to my January, I guess it would be January 7th video where we're talking about this, and you can get more information here about all these crazy, kooky ideas from Bader. Q says, at what point is it mathematically impossible? The very next day. Red Castle, Green Castle, public access to intel, Q. Well, let's go ahead and go back and just see what Q is referencing here. Q dropped some bombs on the 6th and the 7th of January. And we see this in particular post 2649. This is the Red Castle, Green Castle that Q is talking about. The Red Castle being our Army Corps of Engineers out of Green Castle, Indiana. And we've confirmed that with Q a while ago. And the reason why Q has brought them up is because Q has alluded to the fact that these are going to be the guys that are going to build our wall. And we know this because of the spending bill, the fiscal year 2019. I've also talked at great length about the omnibus spending bill. We've always had the money, and that's what I've been saying for some weeks now. We've already had the money. We just need to get the thing built, right? Well, Q was also talking that same day back in this post right here where we saw this watch 315, which just happens to be Bader's birthday. That's right, March 15th, the Ides of March. Beware the Ides of March, yeah? Okay, so is this an allusion to the fact that something is going to go down with Bader very soon? Well, what's up with Bader? Where's Bader been? Well, Bader's been better, from Sebastian Gorka. Multiple sources tonight tell me this woman is not even in D.C., but in New York and preparing to step down from the Supreme Court. And you ready for what will ensue? I'm assuming he means, are you ready? And there's Bader looking her usual chipper self. Now, I want to thank Anon, who pointed out about this watch, this Portugueser. This is from IWC, and the model number is IW390302. 3 plus 9 plus 3 plus 2. Oh, no! So at what point does it become mathematically impossible?
60% of the time, it works every time.
The very next day, Red Castle, Green Castle. So the very next day, we see that Ruth Bader Ginsburg does not show up, and we haven't seen from her since. That was the very next day after this January 6th post, right? So just for a theory, a working theory right now, what if boom number one was our China trade deal coming out of nowhere? And while all this attention has been paid to this border, fence, steel slats, and concrete, and blah, 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 talking points, right? Meanwhile, the real boom is getting done in China. And of course, if that does get done, it's going to be hard for the left to really knock President Trump on that. Of course, they'll try to find a way to do it. But we know that it will likely strengthen his base and probably grow it. That would be a boom. What if boom number two ends up being Ruth Bader stepping down? Well, if she steps down, that's a really, really big deal. That leaves a spot open. Are we talking maybe Amy Coney Barrett? Not really sure, but that would leave a room for President Trump to appoint somebody, whether it's conservative or whatever. I don't really care as long as they adhere to the Constitution. But it puts that in position, right? Boom, number two. And of course, we've still got this William Barr confirmation to go. That very well also could be a boom number three. But either way, whether it's the Supreme Court justice or whether it's a new attorney general, you've got yourself another boom, right? And once that all steps down, then you can get yourself approval for a border wall, because the Senate was the target. And if you want to get your confirmations, the Senate was the target. So boom, 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 boom. Just my theory, but that's what I got for you so far. All right, kids, that's all I got for you. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. If you're new to my channel, please keep in mind that all these platforms are trying to keep you from finding my videos, so I may not even show up in your searches. It's probably going to start happening to a lot of you. And I mentioned the other day that that's particularly going to happen on YouTube, maybe around the 22nd. Now, I don't know how badly it's going to affect everything. I don't know if I'm going to lose stuff. I have no idea. But just so you all know, please join me on some of these platforms off of YouTube just in case, because if you stop finding me, you're going to ask these questions. What's going on with IPOT? And that's likely what's going on with IPOT. Hopefully nothing changes, but it may. So please be prepared. Join me over on Gab, BitChute, Brighteon.com. All my links are down below. And of course, I'm over here on Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. I will start up another thread in regards to alternate platforms. I've actually got one running right here. So if you've got a platform that you would like people to see, go ahead and toss it on here. It's actually pinned to my Twitter page here, so you'll be able to find it right away. You can let people know which platforms you like to use. All right, kids, all those links are down below. My email is down below, and if you'd like to send something old school to a P.O. box, my P.O. box is down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below too. All the links are down below in the video description. Okay, guys, thanks for listening. This is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay cool.